Welcome everyone to episode 355 of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Cantellaresco. I write stuff and podcasts too. My guest is Czernada. I'm not going to say a darn thing else about this conversation because this, beyond a shadow of a doubt, was the most chaotic one I've ever had. It doesn't even come close, and in the best possible ways. So I'm not gonna spoil anything. I'm not gonna say anything. All I'm gonna say is, if you notice how this episode was presented in public, there are no accents, and that's all I'm gonna say. Outside of that, I had the pleasure tonight of introducing the Creatives in Quarantine podcast, which was a reading. I've been doing them every other week, and I'll be doing them again. My next one's April 30th. I'm going to be reading that one. That one is one of my promotions for the Cloud Diver. I'm excited. I'll be reading in front of a live audience, so hopefully I don't make too much of an ass of myself. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I've said enough. Let's get to the conversation, shall we?
This episode of Just Joshing is sponsored by Indie Imprint. Indie Imprint supports creators by creators. Whether you are writing a book or creating a video game, Indie Imprint works with its clients to produce, edit, and present their projects to the world. For more information, check out their website at www.indieimprint.com.
So the recorder is turned on. Is there anything you'd like to say, make it good?
Absolutely.
Just when it's like, awesome. What are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's the third day of CanCon.
Yes,
Wrapping up.
It is. I completely butchered a karaoke song last night.
You weren't alone.
Yes. No, but mine was really, really bad because it was a song I did years ago. It was Falling in Love's Hard Knees by Aerosmith.
Oh, yeah.
But it's been so long since I've heard the song. The main localites oh God, I know the chorus. Got the chorus.
There you go. Were you there for the We Are the Champions that they did?
Oh yeah, no, I was there for that.
Con?
I was there for most of it. I got to meet Sylvain last night.
Oh, yeah.
We got to talk. He's a cool dude.
He's a cool dude.
I got to watch the YouTube Living on a Prayer thing, and that was amazing to watch. That was amazing because watching all these authors that don't want to sing, but this money keeps getting thrown at them, so it's like, you gotta sing.
It was fun. It was a nice way to wrap up after the Auroras.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, you've been doing this for a very, very long time. How did you get in?
Oh, ages ago.
Yeah.
How did I get in? Well, I was writing nonfiction, but I was writing fiction as a hobby. I didn't know conventions existed, although I was a huge fan of things. And so they all kind of came together. My nonfiction editor knew I was writing science fiction for myself and said, you should go to this convention, and it was Ad Astra at the time, and then see what it's like to actually try to sell your fiction. And I was kind of hesitant about it, but I thought, well, I'll try it. And I walked in the door and I said, these are my people, and never looked back. Kept going to conventions after that and met other writers, found out what was the business and how to pitch things and do things. And so I thought I'd send my first story on the rounds. See what happened.
What was your first story?
I actually had 23 I had never finished, so I picked the longest one and finished it. So that was 1,000 Words for Stranger, and that is the first book I sold.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a cool book.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. That's a very, very cool book. So basically from there you just evolved, have you just been with DAW, or have you done it?
Just with DAW. They've published all my fiction. And many of my anthologies came from DAW as well.
Yeah.
So, they're wonderful. I mean, I'd actually sold my second book to Sheila Gilbert, my editor there, before 1,000 came out.
Oh, really? And
that was when I went full-time writing fiction as opposed to nonfiction, because I just loved it so much. I just couldn't bring myself to do anything else.
So you've never done anything nonfiction since? It's just been all...
Every once in a while I get asked to do some things or some articles or something, but I haven't, accepted any more books, no.
No, you haven't pursued it anymore. So
I'm very busy with the fiction, yeah. So that's been about 20 years.
Yeah, no, you have a very extensive career and a lot of amazing books there. So I guess what I'm going to kind of wonder then is, and I just lost the question. Shit.
I saw the question. It went behind your eyes.
Yeah, it did. It totally did. No, it totally did. What I was actually thinking of. So you've done a lot of different series. So what do you feel are the stories, what kind of story do you care about writing? Because I have a belief that every author is really writing their story and they're in their story.
I'm a very curious person. If I have a defining trait, that's what it is. So, and that's my science background as well. I'm a biologist. So my science fiction is always about something that makes me really curious, and I want to do an experiment about it, and I want to see what might happen. And I also like to imagine a future that's like Star Wars, Star Trek, multi-species, lots of interactions, biology all over the place, and to do it so it's as right as possible, but really fun. So when you put those together, if I have a theme in my science fiction, it's curiosity about a question, and sometimes quite a serious question, but without going too dark in my answering of it.
Well, you don't have. Well, the thing about science fiction, I think a lot of people, I think it's just the nature of where science fiction has evolved over the last 30 years. Not every question has a dark answer either. It doesn't necessarily need to go down a dark answer, right?
I like confusing answers. I like ambivalence. It's not right for everybody, but it works.
Well, that's the thing. Like life, like you and me have different perspectives of how the world works, right? That doesn't necessarily mean either of us are wrong. It's just your own perspective and your own experiences that led you to this conclusion. My own perspective and my own experience have led to this conclusion, right? And my favorite kind of science fiction stories are the ones where the questions, sometimes now, it's common days, you'll have bad answer A, bad answer B, which is the lesser of the two evils, but it's much more interesting when it's like good answer but with this bad consequence, or really good answer but really bad consequence, and you're like, okay, so what, like, how do you want to live? Who do you want to be? What are you willing to become? Because science fiction, in my view, is about the exploration of what is possible for the human race in general, right? In everything, one way or the other.
Not necessarily. Sometimes it can be far more about exploring one idea.
Yeah.
And so, for example, I have a book where what I wanted to do was look at, we think we know how not to put an invasive species where it shouldn't be, and how could that happen? I worked very hard on how it could happen, and then I rolled forward to see what we would do and how we would deal with it. And we would be at a point at which we would understand all about this. We would think we would know all about that, but yet people are people, as you say. And I had people stranded in space stations for 20 years because they couldn't go to these worlds because they've been contaminated. And what kind of society would they develop? How would they get along? How would they celebrate? How would they share? How would they work it out? And that was more interesting to me, to figure that kind of a question out. Are we alone or not? And then that's another question that came into the story. But other times I'm asking a far more specific question, and one is, what if something that you meet has a sense that you don't have and uses it to communicate in an important way? How do you figure that out? And so I imagined a character that can actually be anything else and figures this out, and then has to communicate it and solve the problem. But I like compromises, I like messy endings, I like things where it's not that there's a good or bad, everyone has to bend a little.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I like those endings. I like that getting along.
Well, compromise is the nature of how we all interact.
Yeah.
I mean, just in terms of business, you make a deal with like your publisher. I mean, there are things they compromise with, there are things you compromise with. I'm sure it's a really good relationship at this point, but there's always every relationship there's give and take, right? So that's just human nature. It's interesting, like today, I mean, I was talking with Craig Louie about this because of the nature of his novel. Like, it almost seems like the art of compromise is being lost today.
It's a wonderful safety valve. It's a very good social construct. It's a very Canadian approach. I think that's another thing we because we work on diversity and whatever else, and having the two languages, compromise is kind of in our blood, and I like those stories. I like them a lot. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So I guess my question is, we didn't do anything in regards to like we look at today. Today is almost like in kind of some ways, like depending on where you look south, it's almost like a dystopia. Do you think, like, are you doing more interested in doing more escapism kind of stuff at this point, or just whatever just strikes your fancy?
No, it was interesting. We were at a panel just now about how much of the real world you put in your fantasy, specifically fantasy.
Yeah.
And my feeling was that every writer puts in what they need to write, because you write for yourself first.
Absolutely.
And readers will then have to sort out what's there. And I myself detest grimdark. I don't enjoy that. I don't find it a realistic world setting. I don't care for violence as a pornography. But on the other hand, I see no reason why I can't write a short, dark fantasy that explores something about what's the nature of destiny, that kind of a question that interests me, but I wouldn't do it in a full novel. It's not so much that I write to escape as that I have changed over 20 years as a writer. I'm 20 years older. I have, my children are grown. There's a different me now. So if anything, I think that means that I add maybe another layer down to my writing, but it's not consciously so, I just can't help it. I have learned more about writing, for one thing. I'm not afraid of pronouns, as I used to be. Or the first person, I'm good with that.
I actually think I had the thought when I think first person is actually going to make a comeback, but for one of the simplest reasons of all, and that's audiobooks. Because I do audio all the time, and when I listen to someone reading in the book, right, if it's third person, it's incredibly hard to get that engagement right away. It can be done, but it's a lot more difficult to crack that. Whereas a first person perspective is a lot easier to get the reader or whoever's listening engaged, because
you certainly force them in, yeah.
Yeah, no, it does. It forces them in, but it's I wouldn't say forces is quite the right word. It's a lot more.
Just looking to see if I see her there, because she might be there. But no, keep going.
Yeah, but we're looking for Sheila Gilbert, ladies and gentlemen. So it's like, where's Sheila? Almost like where was Waldo?
Yes, it's very much like that, only very tiny.
Yes, very. Very well. Hey Sheila, no harm meant. But no, it just to me it's just the idea that I'm talking about your voice, like your voice. It's also, I think, like the evolution. Like I realize for me when I write a story, I have about a 3-year window to tell it. Because after about 3 years, my voice changes because I'm not the same. There's a metamorphosis.
It will be a different story.
Yeah,
slightly
absolutely.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely evolves. So so when you talk about the layers, that's a good one. What's the biggest difference between, other than your fear, no longer being afraid of pronouns, no longer being afraid of anything else? But I mean, with the kind of stories you tell, because although you may not have, they may not have been subconsciously put there, you're definitely more aware of who you are now than you were 20 years ago. I hope.
I think so. I think there's more of me to be aware.
Yeah, that too.
I think, certainly for me, to do this work for year after year, it not only has to be stories I'm interested in writing, but it has to be methods that I've never tried before. So Gossamer Mage, my latest book, is actually 5 novellas strung together. I wrote it that way on purpose, so it would feel like everything was a capsule within it. And it was a conscious choice to be crafty when I could have just written it just as I've written everything else. And it was a challenge, it was difficult, it was very exciting to do. I couldn't wait to do it. And I think that's what keeps writers fresh as well, because you can challenge yourself, not only in the stories you write, but how you write them.
Yep, and also how you say things too, because I love Ray Bradbury. I really love Ray Bradbury.
Lovely writer.
Yeah, no, fantastic writer. But when you read the stuff at the end of his life, now grant you at this point, no one's going to say anything bad. It's Ray Bradbury. It's still good work. But if you look at what he wrote when he was younger, and you wrote what he wrote at the very end, they're very similar. And what I find is it's not always about technique. It's about that passion in your voice. Like when I think of so a stick figure drawing from a 5-year-old, you can't duplicate it. Even though you might technically be better than the 5-year-old, and me just barely, but I mean that's beside the point. The
eyes and what they're seeing of the world, their attempt to it's all different.
It's so different, and also it's so much more like visceral, because it is literally almost like everything they know how to do at the time. But whereas you're older, you know what you can do and you know what not to do. So I mean, sometimes you have to educate yourself again about what not to do. Is you can do it. It's okay. We talk about pronouns. But sometimes too, it's finding what you say, what you feel strongly about. Because as you said, you've done this a long time. You've said a lot and you've done a lot. So I mean, I guess the question is, how do you keep your obviously techniques are part of it. But your voice fresh, do you challenge yourself at how you see things at this point? Or
definitely. Well, and one of the things that's been helpful is switching between science fiction and fantasy.
Yeah.
Because science fiction, I'm talking from what I know. I mean, that's my background. I write biology-based science fiction. I'm telling stories that I'm very confident about, the underpinning of the worlds, and I'm adding facts I've collected over the years. So I won't say it's easier, but it's smoother.
Comfortable? Maybe?
No, not so much comfortable. I don't like comfy.
Yeah.
It's sparkly. But when I write fantasy, I want something, I'm very conscious of my word choice. I'm very conscious of trying not to approach it like a science fiction writer, not to be analytical, not to be over descriptive, not to be, unless description is part of an important landscape. So I change my office. I take everything off the walls if I'm writing fantasy. I have a different approach. I will model things. I will do things in 3 dimensions. I will write by candlelight. I will do whatever it takes to make sure I am not a science fiction writer mindset when I write fantasy. And it took me about 3 years for my first book to get that right. And I threw away about 400,000 words, which I never do. But now I think, now I can do it. Now I know how to do it and what works for me. So it's like a Pavlov thing. I can switch brains.
So I kind of admire that. It's like one of the things I've learned, I have like 8 rules to success. So the 8th rule is stay uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because it's the only way you grow.
You need that little edge of, I don't know, but this is fun. It's I don't know.
That fear is so healthy because it forces you. It's kind of like a really cool high because it's like, oh my god, I'm aware of everything in ways I'm not normally. Normally I'm one, but 2, it forces you to grow because you've got, can I do this? Do I know what I'm doing? Will I let that stop me? Right, and that's a really good mentality.
But interestingly, those are questions I've never actually asked myself because I have always. Well, I was raised this way, but I've always believed this, that there's nothing I can't do. It's a question of, can I do it right now? Do I have time? Do I have the facilities? Do I have the skill set? Do I need to practice this? Do I need to acquire new software? So it's never been, I've never felt self-limited except for the fact of the practical nature of you need to, look after yourself. You need to look after your home. You've got a family. You've got friends. You've got a life outside. You've got a garden. Yeah. Those are the only things I allow to constrain me, and everything else. If I fail, I don't care.
But that's
important. You have to know that if you don't dare it, you'll never. I mean.
Oh God, no! I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
So I'll just tell you my 8 rules just so you know where I'm coming from. Mm-hmm. Rule 1: show up. Mm-hmm. Rule 2: do your thing. I don't know what I almost feel awkward asking if I can swear in front of you.
Please.
Yeah. Do your shit. I say do your shit. Right. 3: don't quit. It's a cliche, but it's so true.
It's true.
4: the rest is rain. The idea, Colleen Duran has a really good paradox about success. Like, there's a paradox about success is you can do absolutely everything right and still not succeed. Mm-hmm. But if you don't do those steps to success, you never succeed. So this is the paradox. Success varies. Rain falls where it falls. You can't get mad about the rain. All you can do is be as prepared for the rain as you possibly can.
Yep. Oh, 1 second. Roger? Oops, can you turn it off?
No. Oh, yeah. This is important. I can turn it off.
Oh, no. Were you looking for me? I'm just in the interview with Josh.
No, I was actually looking for Sheila.
Oh, so is Josh. So if you see her, if you see her.
Yeah.
Well, I think she's meeting with Costi right now.
Oh, is that what happened? She was trying to find him.
Yeah, and I was trying to find her, and we didn't meet up, so it's all good. By the way, still, congratulations, man. It's awesome.
Thank you very much. Yeah. It's quite an honor, actually. So kind of nice.
So we'll be probably another 10 minutes. This is really nice. And
okay, well, maybe I'll meet you up in the room, then we got.
We'll go and get our stuff out. Perfect. Okay. Thanks, dear. Thanks, Josh.
No, and this is, again, it's part of the show. It's raw, it's real, and it's my theory on that one goes a little bit of chaos creates authenticity.
It does.
Yeah.
So does.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'll go back to my rules here real quick.
Yeah. 4.
Rule 4, the rest is rain.
Yeah.
Rule 5, get the fuck out of your own way. I won the award last year for my podcast. And I asked myself 2 very important questions. How did I get here? Because I always think that even though there's always a little bit of variance of luck to anyone's success, but everybody
timing.
Well, the timing is a big part of it, but also you did something right to get noticed, right? And I always think everybody that gets that opportunity is doing, whether they consciously or not, they create that preparation for that opportunity that came their way. So I asked myself that question, and I asked a 2-part question: what could I do not to get back here? Which because again, we get the imposter syndrome is real. I call them the imposter brothers, tragedy and triumph. Tragedy says when you're broken down, like when you're down and out, that you deserve to be here. Triumph says you don't deserve to be here. They say the opposite thing. They say the opposite thing, but their goal is the same, put you in the exact same place. They're both liars, and that's the thing you got to remember about them. But that's why I asked that. And number 2. Part of that question is, what do I do so well that my mistakes can be forgiven? It's actually because honestly, it's good to acknowledge and figure out what your strengths are. Because success is failure is a very common thing, but success is almost as scary as failure because it's such an unfamiliar thing for a lot of people. So that's rule 5. Rule 6, no excuses. You do exactly what you want, when you want, however you want, no matter what the circumstances are. So own it, right? Own it. Rule 7, be grateful, be charitable. Everybody that helps you doesn't have to help you, doesn't owe you a thing, so say thank you. And rule 8 is stay uncomfortable because life has changed.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're very excellent rules. I mean, if I have any, it's patience, professionalism, persistence. I mean, it's those
So
are.
rule 3 we definitely agree with.
Yeah. Oh no. I agree with all of your rules.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add to that, if I was going to add a rule 9, is there's a right time for things.
Absolutely.
And sometimes one of the things I see with writers, and I've learned it myself, if it's not working, if creating something, creativity is a completely different beast from everything else we do. If creating something that moment is not working, there's no joy in it, or it just seems like it's crumbling apart, go away and do something for a short period of time and then come back. That's what I do in my garden. That's when we go for a walk, just something physical, fresh air, whatever I can do. And I come back and I, as you say, don't quit. But I find that has been enough because my brain was telling me get away from it for a minute and to allow that. And even for people who are at different stages in their life, they really want to finish a book, but oh my gosh, they've got a new baby. So you enjoy the baby because the book isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
If you just read what you've written a little bit and then make a note and move on.
Well, there's 2 things I know for sure. Life only comes around once. What's important to you? Because honestly, that's it. There's nothing else in this life that really matters. Number 2, the other thing I've learned is obviously there's a time and place for everything, but everybody wants to have fun. And the thing is, and especially if you're in a creative field, you need to play. And everybody plays a little.
Playing is huge.
Yeah.
Yep.
Going back to the chaos, a little bit of chaos creating authenticity thing. I do a Dr. Seuss off at When Words Collide.
Oh, perfect.
So what I do is you get these grown adults, you give them Dr. Seuss books, and you make a rule. You have to perform this in some way. You have not lived until you've seen an interpretive dance of Cat in the Hat.
I think I've done that dance.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's that, but there's also so Naomi Davis did Box and Socks in a Yoda voice. That is amazing.
That would be amazing
to behold.
The play is important, and one of the things as for self-employed people especially. You forget that you need to take holidays, you need to take weekends, you need to take afternoons. So it was Roger and I went 3 years without taking a day off, and then we realized it because we love what we do, and the more you work, the better your life is because you're making the money that you need. But then we realized it had been 3 years since we'd taken a weekend off. So we just that day said we got a rule, and we couldn't claim that we could have weekends off because our work was too busy for that, but we could take Friday nights off. And it was amazing how excited we began to get about Friday night. To this day, we still do that, even though we have our schedule is a little more sane and we can take a day or 2 off now. But just giving yourself permission to just have fun.
Yeah.
Like you dance, you go watch a movie, you go have a dinner, you just go fart around. Who knows what you're doing? But to be able to give yourself permission to you're not being bad because you're not sitting and working at the creative thing. Creative things are so different, and they should be a joy to do.
Well,
even if sometimes it's really hard work, it doesn't mean it's not hard work, but it should be joyful work.
Well, I find when I'm like this thing, when you're inspired to do something, it never actually feels like work.
Yeah, exactly.
When it even feels like work, it doesn't really. I've always even with my day job, because I'm doing the podcast, I write my own books and all that stuff. I'm always inspired. But I also realize too, I'm not Superman. As much as I could think I want to go forever. Now sometimes you forget because you're so engaged. You're oh my God, when was the last time I stopped? And it does happen. Where it's
too easy. It happens. Yeah.
Yeah. It's what happened in my life. I was doing this was Monday, and now it's Friday. What happened?
Yep. It does, and it's that's Roger, my husband and partner. He's been my sanity because he will see if I'm getting really roped into a story, and he will make me stop. He will knock on the door.
It's hi, listen.
Yeah.
It's Wednesday. You've been in here for 2 days. I hear voices.
I actually don't get more than 2 hours because he knows it's not a good thing to stick.
No.
In it. Am I seeing Sheila yet? I'm seeing all of Sheila's people.
Yeah, no, they're around.
Have you interviewed Gerald yet?
Yeah, it's actually Gerald.
It's lovely. Did you interview Tanya yet?
I have not interviewed Tanya. I have not met her yet.
Oh, come meet her. Oh,
okay.
Is this a good time?
Go.
We will do an intimate. We will dash from one interview to another. Now you got your stuff there. Don't forget.
No, I won't forget. No. Now.
To be fair, there's still an evening train to Montreal, but it's express now.
How you doing?
Good.
This is a lovely person who does this
Hi.
wonderful podcast. He does
Yes,
very
which he was
raw.
nominated for.
And he's doing it right now because we've been interviewing, and then we said, "There's Tanya Huff. Can we go catch her for a couple of minutes of words?"
Yeah. So there's also I've interviewed Gerald.
Okay.
So I'm gonna try to make him blush here. He's actually one of the sweetest dudes I've interviewed on the show. He really is. So no, and I'll tell you, actually, he told me about how he got published with Thaw, and it's actually one of the coolest stories ever. It came as a result of the Auroras.
Yep.
And I do have to say though, in one sense, you fulfilled expectations because last year when I won, magical things happened as a result of me winning and me just even being there. So you were right, and thank you for giving me a good hope for the experience.
You're welcome.
Minute for, but he hasn't been able to find Sheila, so I thought it would be helpful.
Yes.
I haven't been able to find Sheila either, so,
No.
so join the club.
Join the club. This has become a very interesting, goes with the flow kind of
Yes, who's still around? So.
But you are an amazing writer. I love the Valor series.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes, and I've read Sing the Fourth, not the Fourth Chorus. Wizard and Grove is a neat little series as well. It was a fun little one and done.
And those were my first two books.
Really?
So that's books that are over 30 years old that are still sending change home to mama.
Yes. No, it's cool. Cause because I was going through a major reading and writing grades, and I found your stuff, and I'm like, you're really good. You're really, really, really good.
Thank you. I'd thank you a little more sincerely if you hadn't sound so surprised.
Well, no.
Really good. Wow.
Well, no, not that way. It was just
I know, it's the discovering a new author. You're suddenly I was the same way when I found the T. Kingfisher books this spring.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, these are amazing. Why didn't you tell me about them 2 years ago when they
But
came
the
out?
thing is, books come in the right place at the right
Yes,
time.
that's
right?
very
Right,
true.
Right.
Very
So,
true.
there are people I've never actually read. There's people I've never actually seen or done. And then all of a sudden you meet them. It's like, why didn't I not read these sooner? But but I feel sometimes there are reasons for that because you might not maybe I was so engrossed in Robert Jordan I wouldn't have given maybe the chance you deserved because I'm in a Robert Jordan phase, or maybe because maybe I was reading Ursula Le Guin before I was reading you, I was more receptive to the kind of work you do.
Well, that's very true. Well, we like to say that once we finish a book, it's not ours anymore; it's the reader's anyway.
Yeah.
And everyone reads a different book and brings their own expectations to it. So.
Absolutely. So it's right place, right time.
Right place, right time. Yeah.
Right? So there's on that note, congratulations on your success.
Thank you very
Every
much.
bit of it.
Thank you. I kind of feel that after the whole Hall of Fame thing, I now have enough laurels to rest on, and I'll just.
I don't feel you're that type.
No, I probably couldn't.
Well, no. So one of my favorite is the television commercial thing. One of my favorite television commercials is Anna Smith, the Dallas Cowboys, okay, just won the Super Bowl. Goes, I can take a break. He took a break for 10 seconds and he went right back to work. Well, because here's the thing: when you accomplish stuff, it's addictive.
Yeah.
Because it's cool to actually succeed and make those leaps, and you want to do other cool things.
Well, and also temperamentally, the people who tend to succeed are the people who go right back to doing the next thing as well.
Yeah,
so.
I met Jonas Saul and he had a really good piece. It didn't resonate with me right away, but he said, you know what, I haven't done anything yet. He's done 20 books, international bestseller. He's like, I've done nothing. And I realized what he's actually doing is it's the smartest thing that anybody successful person can do is back against the wall. Always. To push you to go forward.
Well,
So,
Signing off the Czernada portion of this interview.
before we sign off with yours, why don't you promote your book and how people can find you?
I have a book out. I will be. I will be signing the gospel. Will this be airing in the next little while?
No, this will be down the line.
Down the line. I have a new fantasy out called The Gosper Mage, and I have a new novella out called The Dragon for William, which I'll be turning in at some point this week. So it'll be fresh in the stores and available, and love it. Thanks, Josh. Thank you. So great. I gotta find Roger and check out.
so.
This is an accident. Do you have time to come in? And
I
sit
sure,
down?
yeah. I have time.
Okay, I guess we'll come back and sit down and I was over here with Julie and Julie just went poof.
Well, Because you could see me on the diagonal, and because they're dealing with Sheila. And you left your case and your stuff here.
Well, no, she doesn't remember. She remembers. It's like she remembers. This is
That's so Canadian. We just walk out and leave stuff, and we assume.
Well, I'm not in the States. I've lived in the States, and there's a very different hostility. Mm-hmm. So living in the United States, it's like the biggest difference is what Canadians don't see is there's really two levels in the United States. You either have or you don't, and there's no middle ground. Here, there's still a middle ground. So the attitude towards stuff is there. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely some hostile areas in Canada, but it's nowhere near as prevalent as it would say Detroit or Phoenix or
wow. Most of my travel to the U.S. has been very insulated because it's either been to conventions, or it's been to Disney World.
I'm a little jealous of the second one for sure because I've never been to Disney World. Actually,
see, the problem is now when we went, when I used to go a fair bit, was back before this latest bump of popularity. So there were times when the park was almost empty. So if you had a open schedule and you could get down there when the park was empty, you were only trying to beat senior citizens to the front of the line, not 7,000 other people all trying to get on the same ride at the same time. So we probably won't go back until it
calms down.
It calms down. But
hi.
Would you like to see menus today?
No,
we're good. We're good.
Actually, could I get a pot of tea, please?
What type of tea?
Just regular black tea.
Sure can.
Can I have a coffee?
You can?
Yeah, there you go. So I got a lot of it. This is the day I seem to get to talk to all the really cool people I grew up reading. I hope that doesn't make it.
I actually, for the last 3 or 4 years, at every convention I'm at, someone has said to me, "My mother gave me your books."
Okay.
So I'm good with it.
Okay, I didn't want you to start crying and start no.
Actually, I'm thrilled that I still appeal to younger readers. So.
Yeah. Well, no, you have a really cool style. Like it's. I don't want to say contemporary is the right word, but it feels like something I could pick up at any time. Mm-hmm. They're solid, like at the very least they're solid reads to good to great reads, and I will be entertained by anything you do. Which is actually, I hope that's a compliment.
That's a massive compliment. That's a huge compliment.
Yeah. So now I'm like my favorite people I'm reading right now. I'm reading Fonda Lee, JC. That's amazing. I'm also, because I interviewed so many people, I read my friends' books. I'm in this odd position now where it's like, because I'm moving to BC, and I'm like, well, my friends will beat me if I get rid of these books. I can't actually do it anymore. And so it's funny because now I have to give up some of my old favorites because it's like, I'm this person now, and I'm not this person anymore, right?
Exactly. We had to move. We moved everything because we're doing major renovations. So we just moved everything in our house, 50 feet to the south, and that I had to go through the books the same way. It's like, this book was excessively important to me 30 years ago, but is it worth moving one more time? And so we ended up, actually, we culled out 5 boxes of books when we moved.
That's what I'd love to call out. That's what I'd love to call out. I'm actually buying some books today, which is good.
So am I.
So I'm buying Pat Flelling because I think actually she's incredibly underrated. We also have a little deal. If she gets an Aurora finalist, I do a karaoke song of her choice, which I hope is actually good because if I don't know the song, I'll do what I did last night: is I annihilate Aerosmith. If you read my Facebook post to you Aerosmith fans, I am sorry.
Was that what it was? Okay.
Let's take care.
I was up for a while, but I guess I missed you.
No, it was at the end. It's okay. It's okay. It was a song nobody knew to help me sing along. It was one of the lesser well-known ones. I could do it years ago, but I hadn't heard it in years, and it definitely came
Yes,
back.
time passes.
Yes, it does. I can't do this anymore. The things you discover as you get older, it's like, I don't have this bicycle trick anymore. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't happen, no. And that just keeps happening, by the way. It never ends.
I think that's actually a good thing. Because what ends up happening, I think, as you get older / wiser, I'm hoping wiser in my case anyway, right, is you recognize, like, there are things that you're always doing. And we're creatures of, I think, of habit is a way of putting it. But another way is we always need to practice. We always need to practice. And because like anything else, if we don't use it, it erodes. Because we don't need it. It basically, the body's like, you don't need this skill anymore. Once upon a time, I could dribble a basketball. Now, I
Same.
Yeah. But that's where I'm at. So I mean, but I discover new things too. I learn new things all the time as well. So it's almost like there's a trade-off. Like I lose these skills, but I gain these skills. Like for example, I never thought I'd actually be sitting across the table from Tanya.
Oh God, it's not all it's made out to be.
No.
Yeah. Also in Canada, it's not that huge. Because I'm about.
Yes.
Maybe out west a little more, because I don't get out there that often.
No, I will. Like I grew up in Ontario, so I like you say I knew of you because I grew up in Ontario. But I mean, yeah, you don't hear you abroad. But I mean, you've done quite well for yourself. So I mean, definitely a career to aspire to.
And unfortunately, I don't think it's the kind of career you can have unless you started 30 years ago.
Well, no.
Because publishing has changed so much in the last 30 years.
No, absolutely. Well, but that's the nature. Again,
exactly, it's the nature of the beast. Yes.
Right, life has changed. My publishing career is, I mean, I accidentally wrote a book. I accidentally got published. I mean, that's
oops.
Yes, literally. That's like, I mean, but I mean, and so I know like my career is going to be an up and down of.
Just wait a couple minutes.
No,
Okay.
no,
Sorry to be waiting.
Okay. This is one of the most chaotic interviews ever. It's kind of fun. I know I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff independently. Like it's just the nature of the beast today is that's what I'm going to have to do, right? I'm actually okay with it because I do feel like in one really cool way we're almost in a renaissance right now because we're looking at new possibilities. We look at like a lot of people look at the Renaissance as like a romantic time, and it is. But what a lot of people forget is it also was a very oppressive time as well. People were fighting against change. And if you look at it in terms of lifestyle, in terms of what's possible today, and all that stuff's being thought about, talked about, and we are, as a society, I think, and we could be going down a similar path. So discovering a new way to publish a book, discovering a new way to present a story is actually a really exciting thing to me.
Part of it is when it's your only income, it gets less exciting.
Yes.
And it is part of what calls the traditional publishers is because they have to make money off it. It's a business. I have to make money off it. It's a business.
Oh, totally.
So you're less willing to take the risks that people who, if you're not dependent on the income, and the big publishers. A few years ago, I was on the Philip K. Dick Awards on the jury, and I had gotten really depressed, kind of about the state of science fiction and fantasy. That just everything seemed the same.
Yeah.
Nobody was taking any chances. I mean, because I started reading in the '60s and the '70s when it was all they were taking chances. They were doing. Opening new frontiers.
That's still today some of the best stuff because they were doing those things.
Well, it's just that what I found was because when you're on the Philip K. Dick Award jury, you get every single mass market book that was published that year. I mean, the UPS guy shows up in your driveway every 3 days for about a month.
Yeah.
My local library has a very good collection of that particular year.
Yes. There you go. Enjoy. Yeah.
But what I realized is that the small presses who have less capital invested, more emotion invested a lot of the time, are actually doing the cutting edge stuff, and I was so pleased to see it. I mean, I can't make a living off the small presses, but if you're starting and you want to explore what you're doing, there is just some. Either as a reader or a writer, there's just some amazing stuff coming from the small presses.
I would kind of throw in a possible counterbalance to what you're saying.
No.
Okay.
Yes, of course you can.
I think one of the reasons why publishing has gotten smaller, like the big traditional pie, is because no one is taking chances, right? One of the things I think is a necessary thing as growth as a person, but as a growth I think as a business is every once in a while you have to take a swing at the bat, right? Right, something different, something new, something, and if you're always playing it safe, right?
Thank you.
You maintain an audience, right? But there's also a bit of what I call an atrophy effect, right? Because you're not doing anything different. Like, okay, someone like me is like, okay, I was mentioning this to Julie. I love Ray Bradbury, but at the end of his life, a lot of the stories he was writing at the end were a lot similar to the ones he wrote at the beginning. And don't get me wrong, they're still good. But at the very beginning, they were much more interesting because they were a fresher voice, a rawer voice, a new voice, right? This was the same voice. So what ends up happening is the original flavor of ice cream is still the better flavor of ice cream, right? Because it's not, and it's not a knock to what's being done today, because it's still good, but again, there's only one vanilla ice cream. There's a reason for that, right? So sooner or later, I think, just from a point of business, there has to be a little bit of room for, okay, we just gotta swing at everything. We can just do pop, like maybe not we can't do this every single thing we pick up, but if it's new and it's different and it's original and it stands out, well, let's try it. I mean, if we lose on this, but okay, we got Brandon Sanderson making selling zillions of books right now. I mean, it's not like we don't have people that don't sell, right? It's the nature thing is you have to always look for new voices and you always have to challenge. And I think the reason why the smaller presses that go for it's not only just a passion play, but it's also the fact that they realize that's how you become big, because when you do find that hit, you might find J.K. Rowling, and that was. I mean, that home run but baseball still hasn't come down from that hit. So I mean, I think there has to be a little room for risk. I know it's harder, I think, as when you're self-employed and it's just you, but when you do have some wiggle room, I think you need to. Does that make sense?
Well, oh, absolutely. So it's one of the things you can do at the beginning of your career.
Yep.
Because you're starting out, you're doing new things, you're the new voice.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things you can do at the end of your career, because at that point, if you've done things correctly, you have enough of a following that they'll follow you, they'll trust your voice, and they'll follow you if you go into weird shit.
Yes.
But the middle part is tricky.
Yeah,
the middle
absolutely.
part is but also the bigger problem, the problem is if one of those small presses hits a J.K. Rowling, or Game of Thrones sort of thing, because I mean George has been writing for longer than I have, and it's like he was a 35-year career.
He was an overnight success of 35 years.
Yeah, exactly. That was where I was going for.
Yeah.
So, and what happens is if a small press gets that hit, then suddenly they're seen as profitable, and one of the big presses will pick them up, because the big presses are owned by multinational corporations.
Yeah.
And their entire raison d'etre is to make their shareholders happy.
Yes. No, and that's what. But I would argue that, I totally get where you're coming from, and it makes a lot of sense. The author's career I would like to have is Dan Simmons, because he writes everything, right? He writes everything, and he's allowed to write everything. But the worst nightmare for me would be, and although I think he does great stuff, is Terry Brooks. I know, and only because I say this only because I know he gets a really good paycheck. But I'm sure he would love to do something besides Shanhar.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
He could say no if he wanted to.
It's true. No, it is true.
If he wanted to do something different, he could. And it's not like Terry actually needs the income at this point. I think he just has more stories to tell in that world.
Well, you have to love it to keep doing that. Absolutely.
Exactly.
No, there's no doubt. But I do feel like when he did Night of the Word and those books. I really enjoyed them because they were just so it was such a he eventually did tie them in Shanhar, but when he just were running with the demon, Night of the Word, it was like, this is nice. I like that he did something like this. It actually, I think, made his Shanhar stories better when he went back to them.
It's my very first convention in 1976 in Halifax.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it wasn't in Halifax. I was stationed in Mill Cove. And Spider Robinson was living in Nova Scotia at the time. And in Greenbush, which is like the town attached to the enormously large military base, they were having a little one-day con. And Spider and Jeannie were going to be there, and they were showing the Star Trek blooper reel.
Yes.
And that's why I wanted to go. So I didn't have a car, so I convinced two of the guys I was serving with who were also SF fans, said, no, we really want to drive across the province. Unfortunately, Nova Scotia is one of the smaller ones, and go to this convention in Greenbush. And I totally just derailed my train of thought because I'm thinking military. Where did we start on this? Star Trek blooper reel, Spider Robinson, Sword of Shannara. That was it. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I get there, the Sword of Shannara had just come out, and they had gotten Del Rey to send up a box of pre-signed books, and they'd sent Terry a bunch of book plates, and he had signed them, so they had this.
That's cool.
So I have a first edition signed copy of the Sword of Shannara.
That's a high five. That's for the high five right there. That's awesome. By the way, just if Terry does somehow listen to this, I'm not saying that you aren't great. You are. I just like that Dan Simmons does Hyperion, but he also does horror. He does like general fiction. He does he's got this like it almost seems like he can write what he wants. Right? It almost seems that way.
Well, we could all write what we want. Is the thing. He can just do it economically.
Yeah. That's.
But even Dan will say like some of his stuff is making more than others. Well, it's like Harlan Ellison used to say. The TV scripts he wrote allowed him to write whatever the hell he wanted the rest of the year. Because they pay such a ridiculous amount of money, so he could break barriers. He could do what he wanted because he didn't have to worry economically. So
no, that totally makes sense. By the way, so did you enjoy your TV series?
I loved my TV series.
Yeah,
I really did. Well, partly because the guys at Kaleidoscope Entertainment, who are the producers of it, did it because they loved the book. They didn't do it because they thought this is something that'll make money, this will get a lot of viewers. They just really loved the book, so that was amazing. They were terrific to work with. They kept me in the loop the whole time.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, which is very awesome.
Yeah.
Christina Cox had always been one of the people I saw playing Vicky.
Yeah.
And so I was like, when she got when she was cast.
You had a blast.
I did, and Kyle was freaking amazing. He when they shot some of the second unit stuff in Toronto, I had been doing when we first set up. I had been in the room with them in Toronto, so I just commuted in and out to Toronto. And then when they moved the production to Vancouver, because it's just. I mean, it's set in Toronto, but it's just so much easier to shoot in Vancouver. Toronto has set up a lot of roadblocks to
I'm very well aware.
Yeah, so they were here doing second unit stuff, and it's easy to play the vampire. I mean, because the mythology does a lot of the work for you. But it was just a scene between him and Vicky where he was explaining who he was, right? Mm-hmm. And it was just amazing. It was so good, and so I just went out and thanked him because he did such a great job. And Dylan, who played Salusi, was not my visual of Salusi was. Have you ever seen Hill Street Blues?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Okay,
yes.
well the Joe Maritanera, I think is his name. One of the ensemble in Hill Street Blues was always in my head as Salusi. But I have enough. I've still done short stories after the show was done, and now it's Dylan. I see because Dylan just made that his. So I had so much fun, and I got to write a script for it, and finally use my damn degree.
Nice. Well, so me, I when I came back from I lived in Arizona. When I first came back from Calgary, I actually got to do part of the 24-hour film festival. I got a lot. I actually have an IMDb page. I've actually worked on 2 movies as crew, but. I really learned a lot of respect for actors and what they bring to a role when you actually watch them work. Because I don't think people really understand what an actor does until you actually see it face to face. It's amazing. The moment I saw it in person, I gained so much respect for the field in general. Because sometimes you see TV, you see people that really have no business being on TV, right? They're playing these roles and you can see it. Like they don't. This is not what they should be doing. They have a visual look that appeals, but it really, in every other way, you could replace literally no, right. But when someone's really into the role and you let these very creative people tell a story with the characters canvas you've given them, it's amazing.
When I was researching the Smoke books, a friend of mine was the script coordinator on A&E's Nero Wolfe series, so she asked if I could come and hang out on the set for a couple of days just to do research notes, and
that's my phone. Don't worry.
Okay, I was just wondering. I don't think it's my phone.
No, it's my phone telling me it's going to have to end soon, which sucks.
Because you have to go meet somebody else. We'll get through. So Timothy Hutton played Archie Goodwin in that series. He was also the producer of it, so he was the one who graciously allowed me to hang around the set. But they were doing a turnaround where you shoot the scene from one angle and then you do the day from that angle and then you turn around and shoot it from this angle as opposed to resetting after every scene. So 10 o'clock in the morning, Timothy had to do, he was doing that one line, Tim Hutton was doing that one line at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then from a different camera angle, he was doing the same line at about 6 o'clock that night.
Oh, God.
And he had to give, the same emotional impact he had to deliver with the same, and I was like, oh my God, now I realize why actors get paid so much money, because they are totally worth it. I mean, he just came up to the plate and just, it was amazing.
And it kills them a little bit every time they do it, especially if it's like a really emotional scene. It's like, oh my God,
I've got to get there again.
Yes, and that's why like when you see like actors cry, that's why there's a lot of respect given to like those actors that day, because you're like, you're about to like pour your soul out onto the screen, and you're gonna do it over and over again, and it's like, eee.
Can I swear?
Yeah, I'll totally.
Okay. So Graham Norton's show, there was the actress who played the evil sorceress on Willow. Mm-hmm. I can't remember her name because it's Sunday at a convention. But she was on the Graham Norton show, and so she was telling about up on the battlements, when she's up in the battlements, and Ron Howard, who directed the movie, said to her, he said, okay, let's do it again, and can you cry? And she says, and I looked at him and said, I studied at the Royal Academy of Dramatic fucking Arts. Of course I can cry.
Oh God. So I this is the part that I hate, because I just met you and I really like you and I really want to have a longer conversation with you, and I can't, and it sucks. But
come back to CanCon next year, because I'm here every year.
Okay.
Maybe we'll talk again.
Actually, let's make this a promise. Next time I come, whenever right, we'll do a full interview, just you and me as friends.
Deal.
I was really, really flattered I got this chance, though, nonetheless. So, congratulations on your Hall of Fame. You deserve it.
Thank you very much. Congratulations on this year's Aurora nomination.
No, it's great. Like, so if I had won, I would have had to karaoke Oops, I Did It Again in a tutu.
Oh, man. Now I really wish you'd won.
Yeah, because it would have been my second one, right? It would have been my second one.
Yes, because you've won previously.
Yeah, right, for this, right? So, Pat Flowering goes to me, so I'm going to secretly campaign for this, because I think you might agree that she's very underrated.
Actually, when book 3 came out, I actually got my shit together early enough to nominate for the Auroras, because I wanted her on the nomination ballot.
No, so here's the deal. If she gets nominated, if she's a finalist next year, I do a karaoke song of her choice. I will actually come to the award because it's Pat, right? Number 1. Well, actually, it's in Calgary.
It's in Calgary, so you can be there anyway.
No,
that's right, because you're not in Calgary anymore.
That's right. Well, I won't be soon enough, right? So, number 1. Number two, if she wins, I do the same thing, right? This is my just honest opinion about her. She helps so many people, and very quietly does not. A lot of people do not realize it.
And her book is amazing. I love that story.
I finished book 1. So I'm buying book 4 today. I am buying one.
I got to Happy Dance on Friday because I got a copy of it, because I have the cover quote and the dedication is to me in book 4. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
I really love those books.
Yeah,
so.
They're good. No,
yeah,
they're really smart. Book 1. I haven't read books 2 and 3 yet, but I'm like, okay. So the question I had, and I know you know the answer to this, so don't spoil us. Why was he thrown in there?
That's the great thing about that is the reader finds out as he does. And it's so cool.
The only thing I told her is like the first 20 pages they're not like the rest of the book is such a cool ride, but that first 20 pages is just like, I don't know, it's missing.
Well, because I think she had to add the first 20 pages. I seem to remember her telling me that was she had to add those in later, so they don't have the same emotional impact, because they were purely an intellectual exercise. Because
actually, I think honestly, if someone reading the first book, that actually is a bit of, once you get to page 21, it's a ride. It's a freaking ride the whole rest of the way through. But it's just like, those first 20 pages, like, I don't know. I get to page, never mind.
It was, I love this book. So next year, because she's got the book out this year, next year I will re-get my shit together early enough to nominate.
All right. But we should, we should promote something from you.
Something from me.
Yeah, I don't know what's out recently from you or what's coming from you.
Well, recently, DAW has reissued the Smoke books in a single omnibus volume, so you can get all 3 of them at once, as opposed to just 1 and 3, which was very annoying for a little while there.
Yeah. Congratulations.
The last of the Tor and Kerr books came out in paperback this year. That's the 5 Confederation books and the 3 Peacekeeper books.
That's actually my favorite series of yours. Fun.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
So that's now available in paperback. It's also available in ebooks and audiobooks. And I was very lucky because I had the same voice actor through the whole thing, and Marguerite is just wonderful on it. I'm currently working on a created world fantasy that has been kicking my ass. So this is part of the as you get older you need to stretch kind of thing, and this is a stretch. And the stretch is that has taken me a year longer to write than anything I've been written before. But I'm stretching.
And you're stretching. It sounds like you're having fun.
I am having fun. I would be having more fun if I hadn't had to tear down my house this year. But it's really hard to write when somebody's hammering a steel roof on over your head.
Actually, at that point, you just go to a cafe. You do that.
Unfortunately, I live in the middle of nowhere, so we have one little cafe that's always full.
Dang it.
Yeah, really.
Well, so you gotta build a secret hideout. Tanya have secret hideout.
Also, we have 2 dogs, 6 cats, and well, we had 3 guppies when I left, but that's a very variable number. Guppies are hard.
Yes.
I had no idea fish were hard. You put them in water. How hard is that? Guppies are hard.
They are. They really are.
Well, Fiona rescued. She works at a pet value store, and somebody had ordered 4 dozen guppies as feeder fish, right, for carnivorous tropicals, and then didn't want them. And half of them died. They were down to 28 of them because, of course, they have no way to keep them.
Yes.
They're not a pet store. They're a pet food store. And so she brought them home. She came home one way with 28 rescue guppies, an aquarium, and all the... And so we set them up, and the ammonia levels got too high, and in less than 24 hours, 25 of them died. And she wouldn't let me feed them to the cats, which I thought was a lost opportunity, really.
Kind of, yeah.
Because it's like, come on. The guppies were free. The cats would be happy with them. Let's save a little money here.
Oh, man. You're awesome. Okay, how can people find you?
I am on Twitter at Tanya Huff. I am on Facebook at Tanya Huff. Everything I post on Facebook is public, so if you don't want a friend, just follow, and you'll find everything I do.
Sweet. And that was my conversation with Julie Czernada and friends. And wow, what a way to wrap up my CanCon and 2019 conversations, if I say so myself. That was incredible. I cannot describe how absolutely nuts this was, and I hope in the best possible way. Julie's most recent book was Search Image. You should definitely take a look at any of her works. 1,000 Words for Stranger is one of the coolest books I've ever read. Definitely take a look at it if you want a good starting place. But Search Image is a really good book, and it's her most recent one. You should definitely check it out. Tanya, she's got so many great books herself. Just go follow her most recent one is the book cover there. My personal favorite with her, though, is the Sing the Four Quarters series, but her Blood series is amazing too, so check them both out, and everything else in the middle. That was my CanCon, that was my 2019, and everything from here will be for 2020. And yeah, what a year this has been. Wild year, good year. Check out my newsletter. It's going to go out Saturday. You get to see me start doing some promotion for the Cloud Diver this weekend. I'm on Spilling Ink. I'm part of CyberCon on Sunday this weekend. So definitely check out everywhere I'm going to be. It's definitely going to be a blast. And obviously this week's story time is the conclusion of Chapter 2. And that will feature a very cool musical number. So I have some conversations still kind of from early in my BC before COVID, and most of my conversations are after COVID. From here, you're going to see a mixture of both going back and forth. Next week's going to be Bobby Nash and Philippe, or Into a Dream, simply because they were my reading guests, and I figured just get both those conversations going. But after that, we're going to go back with Jennifer Cockton, and we're going to go back with Ilana Tanya Lyle. Then after that, we're going to go forward again with Jen Taylor, and we'll figure it out as we go. It's going to be a blast. But in the meantime, guys, thanks for listening. And that will do it for this episode of Just Joshing. If you want to support the podcast, do so a number of different ways. I'm on virtually every platform: iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher. I am there. I am currently have my Cloud Diver early release May 1st. But I still have books at Mirror World Publishing, which you can get right now at mirrorworldpublishing.com. My sponsors, Indie Imprint, support everything they're doing right now, especially the video game end of things. If you're looking for good video games, they are the place to go. My YouTube channel is Joshua Pentellaresco. My Twitter, Instagram is at jpentellaresco. My Facebook page is Joshua Pentellaresco, author, podcaster. If you want to hire me, contact me at the email below. Stay inspired, stay joyful, and I'll talk to you guys next time.
Josh.